I've been dealing with some stuff this morning as far as the 3D printer goes. And I got home from work like maybe about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I started on printing something, and I realized it was going to take a lot longer to print than I thought it was, and it wasn't going to get done till like 9 o'clock at night, which meant 3 hours after I arrive at work tonight. So then I'm like, well, I'd wanted to have a long print going while I was at work, but I guess I'm not going to do that now because I already started this one. I'm already committed. So it's like an 11-hour print. And for whatever reason, the filament keeps jamming up. And I don't know what the deal is because I've done everything I can. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it that I can find. And finally, I just like, screw it. And I just like yanked like a couple of yards of filament off the roll. And just like, we're just going to try it now and see what happens. So that's been my morning so far. How are you out there in YouTube land? I hope you're doing well. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and have my app up for my printer just in case, while I'm sitting here right next to it, just in case something goes wrong. And I know I'm on screen now, so everything's good. So today I have to open up for you another figure from the Masters of the Universe Chronicles line, another figure from the 2026 movie, and this is Men-at-Arms, Heroic Master of Weapons, with his deluxe articulation. And we see here Idris Elba as Duncan, Man-at-Arms, facing off against Skeletor. And here on the back, got a nice image of the figure, a couple of images of him in some action poses. And it says here, Man-at-Arms, Heroic Master of Weapons. Just as Eternos fell, so too fell the commander of the King's Royal Guard. With the return of He-Man, however, Duncan fights to save Eternia from Skeletor. Alongside the Masters of the Universe, the King's Men-at-Arms will find the redemption he seeks. Well, I certainly hope so. So Idris Elba, great actor. We've seen him in a lot of movies. He was in Thor, where he played Heimdall, and he was. I think like the thing that first made him famous was he was on that show Luther, which I've never seen, but I hear it's quite good. And I remember seeing him in The Office, where he played Charles Minor, probably my favorite villainous role that he ever played. I enjoyed him in. Anthony Jameson says, who passed away? Nobody passed away. Not that I know of. Unless you know something I don't. But yeah, so Idris Elba cast as Man-at-Arms, and there had been some people complaining about it's a race swap or whatever, and I don't really care. I don't have a problem with it. Honestly, Tom Kane passed away at 64, way too young. Okay, so I hadn't heard about that, but yeah, that is pretty young. Hell, it's only like only about 14 years older than I am. So of course, I like to think I've got at least another good 30, 40 years left in me. If I don't get the Alzheimer's, I definitely don't want to get the Alzheimer's. I kind of feel like the sweet spot to pass away is like in your 70s, when you're still like you're still pretty sharp. You still got it all going on upstairs. Like I just don't want to wind up like having the Alzheimer's. That's what worries me about getting old. But maybe I'll just drop dead of a heart attack when I'm in my 70s and be fine. And I know my mom, if she heard me say it, she'd be like, I'm in my 70s. I'm like, no, Mom, you need to live to be like forever. Yeah, Catherine O'Hara was only 71 when she passed away. And I was a big fan of hers. So let's go ahead and open this up. Oh yeah, I should probably point out the cross-cell artwork on the back. And this is the third figure from this wave that I've opened up. I've already opened up He-Man and Triclops, and I still need to print out a new sword for Triclops. I probably should have done that before I got on printing out this big old thing, but whatever. So it does still have the same, I've pointed this out before, the same space over here for extra accessories that Masterverse had, but I've not had any of these movie figures have any extra accessories over here. They seem to be kind of sparse with accessories as far as Masters of the Universe figures go, at least as far as the adult collectible ones go. And you can see for yourself, there's nothing in there. I knew there wasn't going to be anything in there, but I wanted to open it up and show you guys just so you could see that there was nothing in there. All right, so let's go ahead and get him out of the package. And we got, of course, since it's Man-at-Arms, he has to come with his classic mace. So let's get that out. And this thing's kind of embedded in the package a little bit. But, there we go. Got it out. So there it is, and it's molded in kind of a nice nice bronze color, kind of metallic. Not quite as orange as we're used to seeing Man-at-Arms' equipment, but it's still, like, I think a good Man-at-Arms color. And I think this was more made because of, like, how it's assembled. But you can see that there is actually a point of articulation here where this rotates all the way around. And I think that's just because of, like, the molding process. That's probably, like, the way they felt like they could get the best casting of this when they molded it. So it's probably not meant to actually turn around. That's just a bonus that it rotates like that. And it does not seem to be removable at all. So I guess once they plug it in, it's locked in good. And then Man-at-Arms comes with another weapon, which is this blaster. And it looks very similar to the blaster that came with the Kids Core figure, but whereas that one was molded in that kind of Man-at-Arms type metallic yellowish orangish plastic, this one is just a black pistol with a brown handle, like a reddish brown handle. And that's about it as far as that goes. It's got double barrels, so that's kind of neat. And it looks to me like you can fit some pew pews in there. If I can find any G.I. Joe ones I might have around here, or from the Soldiers of Fortune figure I opened recently. But I don't see any where I can easily get to them. I know I had some on the table over here, but I think they got knocked over when this bottle of soap that I have here got knocked over, and I have no idea where they... I'll probably find them when I step on them. I'll probably find them when I step on them. But yeah, it looks to me like you can probably fit blast effects in there. So that's pretty cool. Set that aside for now. And then Man-at-Arms comes with 2 solid fists. And I believe he's wearing brown gloves with the fingers cut off. So you can see it's like a slightly different shade of brown from like the rest of the hand. So maybe they should have just given him bare hands or given him a different color gloves, because like that color of brown is awfully close to the flesh color. So maybe they should have, black gloves or gray gloves would have been good. And I'm pulling them out of the package here, but I haven't even cut the rubber tabs yet. So let's go ahead and get on that. That's going to make this a little bit easier. And there's one around his forearm at each elbow. I mean, one around each elbow is what I mean. And then there's one around each shin, just above the ankle. And it's at kind of an angle where it's a little awkward for me to get. And I don't have my snips over here with me because I had them over there by the 3D printer. Because like I said, that was giving me some problems this morning. But hopefully, I've solved that problem now and I've fixed it. And it seems like it's been going pretty good so far. So haven't had any further problems with it. All right, so now we got all this. We got everything out of the package. I might as well just go ahead and real quick put the package back together before we get into that. We have the same Castle Grayskull background that we had with He-Man. I forgot to look at the background on Triclops and see what the background looked like on that. That's probably Snake Mountain. And I've already put that box in the recycling bin anyway. So we're just going to have to wait until we get another villainous figure before I can have another look at that. And that's probably going to be Skeletor, because I got the one that I ordered off of Amazon, and it says it's supposed to be here like around the 20th or so. And what is it? It's the 18th? Oh my God, it's already May 18th. Oh, I did have my snips over here where I could reach them. Too late now. But yeah, I was always a big fan of Catherine O'Hara, and like I think like a lot of kids my age back when I was a kid, the first thing we would have saw her in would have been Beetlejuice, where she played the stepmom character in that. And I had a little bit of a crush on her in that movie. Like that was a good movie for young Alan as far as his crushes, because you had Winona Ryder. I had a big crush on Winona Ryder, and it started there. Like the other two, these were all ones that I had a crush on from seeing this movie. Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara and Gina Davis, like three very beautiful, very talented women. And yeah, so and I haven't seen Gina Davis do anything in a while. I think she's mostly retired from acting, but Winona Ryder was on Stranger Things, so she's still been busy doing stuff. And Catherine O'Hara was the most recent thing I can remember seeing her on was Schitt's Creek, which that's a pretty funny show. I need to go back and watch the rest of the episodes of that, because I think I only watched like the first 2 or 3 seasons. So anyway, here is Duncan out of the package, and it's an excellent likeness of Idris Elba. But one thing that does bother me is it looks like the paint they decided to use on his mustache and his eyebrows, it's kind of glossy. So it gives him this weird glossy mustache. So I'm probably going to try to go over that with like some matte finish and make it so it's not quite as glossy anymore. And then his armor is, that kind of bronzish, goldish color. Not quite as orange as what we're used to see, but this is supposed to be like a more realistic version of Man-at-Arms. So maybe like the school bus yellow isn't the way to go for that. But and then it's got like what I think is interesting is it's got like a little bit of a patina kind of thing to it, where it looks like there's some corrosion to the armor, like some copper type corrosion. Like you can see like there's some green dry brushing on there. It looks really cool. And like if they're talking about Man-at-Arms looking for redemption, like maybe he ain't worn this armor in a while, and he's wearing it again for the first time, and maybe that's why it's not quite as shiny as it is. Maybe they'll do something like in the 1987 movie where like the armor is all shiny at the end of the movie, like with He-Man at the end of that movie, which or that's what they do with C-3PO usually in the Star Wars movies. Like if you think about at the end of the, like he's all got crap all over him through most of the movie and filth and all this kind of stuff, and then at the end of the movie they got him and R2-D2 all polished up and shiny. So maybe they'll do something like that with Man-at-Arms, since he's got this kind of dingy quality to his armor. And I think that would be really cool. That would be a cool thing to do. Amiga Cami is here and says hi to you. Good to see you as always. And let's see what else do we have to say about this. I've talked before with He-Man and Triclops and Beastman especially, how those were the figures where I noticed it the most, that there was a very 2000X quality to those designs, that it took a lot of elements from 2000X. Beastman looks very much like the 2000X version. Triclops is like pretty much 1-1. Other than the fact that he has long pants, that costume is exactly the same as what Triclops had in 2000X. And, He-Man, like I said, here we can see for yourself the 2000X He-Man versus the Nicholas Galitzine. And you can see they're very similar, with like the brown straps and the silver breastplate, and it's got a lot of the same stuff going on. Man-at-Arms, on the other hand, seems to me like he's more based on the Filmation design, where you have the symmetrical armor, because of course the original figure just had the armor on the left arm and the left leg. And when Filmation did it, they like to have symmetrical models, so that way they could have the character walk across the screen, and either way they could use the same model. They could just reuse the animation and just have them walking in the other direction. So that kind of thing. So this to me looks more inspired by Filmation than 2000X. Even the way they did his shin armor, where it's a little more plain. It's not quite as, you can see they put a little more detail into it because it's a movie, but it's still not quite as, it doesn't have like the knee pads with the big studs on them to match up with the shoulder pads there. again, very much like Filmation, just kind of drew it kind of like the top of Batman's boots. Like I think Skeletor and well, I know that Skeletor and Man-at-Arms in the Filmation cartoon collection, they have the same exact shin, because that's why. Amiga Cami says Roboto gets blown up in the final battle, but waddles in all fixed up during the celebration ceremony. Wouldn't surprise me. Again, that's enough. Roboto is another one that's very similar to the 2000X design. And something that I noticed on the previous Man-at-Arms, the Amazon Man-at-Arms figure, the Kids Core line, is he's got like what looks like a miniature version of the mace. You see here, like it's like you can imagine it was a mace that like compresses itself down and gets smaller, and he just kind of stores it on that leg whenever he's not using it. I suspect that's what that's the case. I suspect that, you know, because you see the mace expand in the trailer. You see it like, so maybe that's what that is. It's just like a smaller, a compressed down version of the mace, and then he takes it out and it expands into its full size. And that would be pretty cool. And we see he's got a little peg over here on his other thigh. And I don't remember if I pointed this out before, but of course there is a little peg hole on the blaster. So much like with the Kids Core figure, you can store his blaster by putting it on the little peg on his thigh there. Make sure you get a good look at that. And then he's got little grenades and all this kind of stuff on his belt. The belt is kind of a plain gray. I would like it if it was a little more bluish, like to match up with his helmet, and again to match up with the original figure. The helmet design isn't bad, like I said before. I think it could have been a little better. I think they probably could have gotten a little closer to what the toy looked like, or what it looked like on the Filmation cartoon, or even the 2000X cartoon. So it's not quite as distinctively Man-at-Arms shaped as it could be. But I'm not complaining too much about it. I still think it's a nice shape for the helmet. I'm going to take the blaster off before I drop it, because I don't want to lose it. But it does fit nice and snugly onto that peg, I should say. And then as I pointed out with the Amazon figure, what looks to me like a little mini jetpack back there. So I think that would be cool if he had a jetpack built into his armor. But I guess we'll see what it is. And so here's something funny, is this shoulder piece just has like a strap that's kind of molded, that's like a solid strap, so you'd have to slide it down over his forearm. But this shoulder piece actually has a peg, so that you can take it off that way. And I think that's probably because that way you won't have to take off this big bracer over here when you take off the armor. But is the bracer even removable? It seems like the bracer actually is molded on. So that's probably why they did that. Oh, and speaking of the Filmation elements added to this figure, you can see that he does have a wrist blaster on his bracer. So that is a little innovation that Filmation brought to the table when they were doing their version of Man-at-Arms. And it was something that I loved as a kid, because, you know, oftentimes, you know, with these action figures, you'd wind up losing their accessories. And like, then you have a Man-at-Arms with no arms. I mean, not his arms, but sometimes that too. But I mean, he doesn't have the Master of Weapons without any weapons. But as we learned from Masters of the Universe Revelation, Man-at-Arms is never without weapons. So he's got that wrist blaster in there. And it looks like there's another what could be a wrist blaster over on the other bracer. And by the way, for those of you who remember that episode, oh yeah, that's a good point. Amiga Cami says, I'm guessing he uses the jetpack to jump at the Collector. That's right. That cool, the 300 scene where he's like Michael Fassbender in 300, like that shot where he's, you know, like the kind of the homage to that. And you know, I love my Zack Snyder, so so I definitely liked that. But remember how I was saying, like, I could have sworn when I was looking at the Amazon figure, I'm like, I could have sworn he had another bracer, but no, he's not supposed to come with another bracer. Well, this one does have the bracer on the figure, and you can see it's a much more much more narrow, much more streamlined bracer than the one that is on his left hand, on his left arm, but it's still there. So I guess, like I said, it looked kind of like there was some kind of armor there, but it just wasn't painted in. So I guess that was the thing. They probably should have just painted that one in on the Amazon figure, but they didn't for whatever reason. And even though, like I said, they took some elements from the Filmation design, with it being the armor being more symmetrical, and he doesn't just have the armor on the left arm and leg, he also has armor on the right arm and leg. But they did acknowledge the asymmetry of the original figure in that you can see that it's got the studs over here, like the 80s style armor over here, but over here all the armor is a little more streak and streamlined on the arm, and it's not quite as armored as heavily as the left arm, but it's still armored nonetheless. So let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. Oh, before I do that, one thing that I want to point out is, in case any of you were wondering, the helmet is not removable. And that's something that if I'm armchair quarterbacking this figure, I think a removable helmet would have been something that would have knocked this figure out of the park. It would have been nice to be able to take off his helmet, but oh well, it's not that big a deal. It's fine. Oh, but this armor is removable. So let's go ahead and pull off the breastplate. So I want to have a look at that underneath, and we can see that Man-at-Arms has like a little bit of circuitry underneath on his shirt. You see those four little studs there, as if it connects, like little electrodes that would connect to the breastplate for whatever reason. And there's kind of like this bibbed front, like it's a Flash Gordon type costume almost. It looks really cool. Hey, speaking of Flash Gordon, I've got Flash over here. Let's have a look at Flash Gordon next to this guy, because I don't know if I compared sizes with some of the other figures that were at least vaguely in this scale, but I don't know if I did Flash Gordon, which kind of surprises me. You know, Flash Gordon is something that I kind of feel like is like a kindred brand to the Masters of the Universe, and was probably a big influence on Masters. So yeah, there he is. I knew you were in there somewhere, Flash. And let's I'm not gonna bother to put I guess I'm gonna put the breastplate back on there. Where did I put the breastplate? There it is. We'll go ahead and put them back together, and then we'll look at them next to Flash Gordon. How have I not compared these to Flash Gordon yet? Because you know I love my NECA Flash Gordon figures. I mean, there's two of them hanging on the wall behind me that you can see at all times. Like, I love those figures so much, I just wanted to have those visible on my channel constantly. I'll pop the helmet back on. And I feel like these are going to be like really good in scale with each other. Yeah, you can see that Flash stands just a little bit taller than Man-at-Arms. So I think that these figures do kind of scale well together. We'll look at him next to He-Man also. And he's about the same height as He-Man. He's just a little bit taller than He-Man. Just a little bit. Now, He-Man, there's no shame in not being as tall as Flash Gordon. He did save every one of us. But yeah, he's like kind of so He-Man, I guess, will be a little bit taller than Man-at-Arms then. Yeah, He-Man's a little bit taller than Man-at-Arms. And He-Man's about the same height as Flash Gordon. Almost. Flash is just a little bit taller. But, you know, it's Flash Gordon. Now, if I compared him to the movie Flash Gordon, the Sam J. Jones figure, I believe that one is actually much taller than the comic book, the comic strip style NECA figures. So, all right. So now that all that's out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. But yeah, the breastplate and this armor piece are removable, and it looks like all the rest of are both the shoulder pieces. And you can see it's got those electrodes underneath there too. So that's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. So Man-at-Arms can look up about that far, and that is really impressive. That is a great range of motion there as far as the neck goes. He can look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quickly from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. And of course, like all these other Chronicles figures so far, this version of Man-at-Arms not only has an articulation where the neck meets the head, but where the neck meets the shoulders. So a lot of good potential articulation there. very much like a G.I. Joe classified figure. And he's got kind of the butterfly joint thing going on the elbow, or sorry, the shoulder. I'm sorry. And then the arm rotates all the way around, and the arm raises up to the side about that far. And since these shoulder pieces are separate, they don't really get in the way too much, so that's good. Man-at-Arms does have a bicep swivel, so that rotates all the way around. And since we've got it there, we can get a better look at those little electrodes underneath at the shoulder. So that's kind of a neat detail. I kind of wonder if we'll see him like the bodysuit without the armor pieces on it in the movie, or if that's just something where like they were just kind of editing some extra detail to the action figure, or maybe it's something that it actually is in the movie suit, but we just aren't going to get a good look at, or maybe we will get a good look at it. I don't know. I'm really excited about this movie, guys. All right, so he's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. Of course, he's got these big old bracers there, and that's going to kind of get in the way a little bit. And then his wrists rotate all the way around, where the wrist meets the forearm and where the wrist meets the hand, because he's got that cool new Chronicles style of wrist articulation, that kind of McFarlane style, that Revoltech style. It's that good wrist articulation that I like. And he's going to have the cool ankle articulation too when we get down there. But then, he can move from side to side at the torso, about like that, where the rib cage meets the abs, and where the abs meet the trunks. And he can bend back about that far, bend forward about that far. He can rotate all the way around where the rib cage meets the abs, rotate all the way around where the abs meet the belt. Man-at-Arms. Oh, I haven't really talked about this. I keep forgetting to mention this. These do have the drop-down hips, like a G.I. Joe classified. So that's really cool. That'll help as far as getting He-Man to sit on Battle Cat. And it also makes it so he can kick up just a little bit further. So Man-at-Arms can kick up about that far. He can do the splits no problem, but the mace on his leg is going to kind of bump into his pelvis a little bit. Al Davis is here and says, "Evening, Ellen, and everyone in the chat, hello." So, and there is, like, if you look at his belt, there's just like a little bit of his jacket hanging down underneath it. So this, I called it a bodysuit earlier because I tend to think of it as being a bodysuit on the original figure, but it actually is there. I guess there actually is like a separate jacket and pants here on his uniform. And that brings me to probably the biggest difference as far as the costuming on this version of Man-at-Arms versus any other versions of Man-at-Arms is that usually Man-at-Arms has some kind of furry loincloth here, like the furry shorts that the original figure had, or the furry loincloth the 2000X one had, and the new Eternia one had the gladiator kilt, kind of like what He-Man here has. But Man-at-Arms ain't got none of that. He's just got regular old pants. So that kind of it could have thrown off the color balance on this figure a little bit. But you notice the thigh armor that they gave him, which that's an innovation. That's something that Man-at-Arms doesn't usually have. You notice that's strapped to his legs with some thick brown straps. So they actually did incorporate some straps, some brown into it that way. So it does kind of help with the color balance a little bit. And then he's got kind of quilted kind of knee pads there, like that are built into the suit. So that's an interesting thing to point out, I think. He's got a little bit of a wobble here at the hip. It doesn't rotate all the way around, but I feel like gives you enough movement there. And then he's got double jointed knees with some excellent range of motion right there. So that's about how far you can bend the knee. He has a boot cut, so the boot rotates all the way around. And it's kind of funny because I guess you see how tall the brown boots are. So it doesn't actually you call it a boot cut because usually it rotates where the boot meets the shin, where it meets the calf, but not in this case. In this case, and this is kind of a strange thing that they did, you can see where the seam is, and it's just above where the strap is that holds the shin armor on. So there's just like a little bit of his boot peeking up over. Why did they do it that way? Because you would think that the strap would be the perfect place to put that seam, but they put the seam like right above it. Very strange decision, and I'm not sure why that decision was made. But yeah, they're very tall kind of boots, and you can see there's like a little strap with a buckle on there, so that's pretty cool. And then Man-at-Arms foot can point down about that far, point up about that far, and then it rotates all the way around where both the foot meets the ankle and where the ankle meets the shin, and that's it for the articulation. So let's go ahead and put this guy's weapons in his hands and see how he looks with those. So first, let's do the classic, the iconic Man-at-Arms mace. And there he is with the mace, looking all badass. And that's a big honking mace. I think it's fairly well scaled to him. It's not as big as some of the maces have been with Man-at-Arms figures, but like for a more realistic version of the character, I feel like that's a good size. I've said before that I kind of feel like the vintage Man-at-Arms mace and the Origins one by extension, they look a little small for my taste. And this one is definitely not as big as, say, the Classics version or the 2000X version, but it's still like fairly large and formidable. So there he is with the mace. And now here's where we're going to run into a little bit of a problem, because he's got this blaster, but he's got no trigger finger on his hand. And even if he did have a trigger finger on his hand, check that out. The trigger is actually filled in on the figure. Like there's no, like the trigger guard, and you see the trigger is like sculpted into it. I think you can maybe see that over the camera, but it's all like one solid piece, so he can't really hold this gun properly. And I would forgive this on an Origins figure because, you know, the pistols never really had realistic grips anyway. It always just kind of looks like a pole because of the way that those hands work. So I could forgive that on the Origins figure. But the Kids Core line had a hand that could properly grip his gun and a gun that can properly be gripped. Why don't we get that on the Chronicles figure? Why did they skimp on it here? Why didn't we get a hand with a trigger finger, or indeed a gun with a proper trigger? So they dropped the ball on this blaster, I think. I don't think they did a very good job with it. So even though the paint is nice on it and sculpting is nice on it, it's just not very good as far as holding it in his hand. And I kind of almost wonder if maybe originally it was just supposed to be a permanent piece, because then it would kind of make sense. Because why bother to give him a space for the trigger finger if it's just going to be something that just sticks on his thigh permanently and you never do anything with it? But probably somebody at the last minute said, you know, he should probably be able to hold his gun, but maybe they didn't have time to fully retool it. They just didn't glue it on. Maybe that's what happened. This is just me speculating. I have no evidence of this. It's only a theory that happens to fit the facts. But I kind of wonder if that's what happened. Anyway, disappointments with his blaster aside, and they definitely could have done a better job with the blaster. I'm not gonna lie about it. Disappointments with that aside, this is a pretty great figure, and I don't have any other complaints about it really, other than that. Like most of the other nitpicks that I would have, like I probably would like if he had some kind of loincloth, gladiator kill. Even if you don't want to do fur, I think the gladiator kill would have been fine. Al Davis says, I suspect you're right, dude. So, I mean, like I said, it makes sense, doesn't it? It just makes sense. So, anyway, I think that this is a great figure, and he's definitely worth picking up. And I'm glad I was able to find him this past week at Walmart. And that is the third of the three Chronicles figures in the first wave of movie figures. And hopefully that next wave will be popping up soon. And even if it doesn't pop up soon at retail, like I said, I should be getting Skeletor sometime soon. I'm about to sneeze. Fair warning. That one's kind of lame. Kind of makes me worry that like I'm gonna have a worse one coming up. You know what I mean? The Trash Picture Show is here and says, is the articulation a step up from the standard Masterverse stuff? Yes, it actually is. They actually did a great job with the articulation. And like I feel like Masterverse figures are fairly well articulated figures. Like I like the articulation on Masterverse. I thought they did a good job with that articulation. So I'm not trying to so you understand I'm coming from a place where like, you know, I'm talking about it with love when I talk about that, but they they improved on it even more with it says May 27th Skeletor is supposed to show up. So maybe another week or two I'll get it. Al Davis says, "Bless you, sir." Well, thank you. It's like even though that sneeze was kind of lame. Like normally my sneezes are much scarier than that. So I guess I shouldn't complain. But yeah, they've got like they've got butterfly joints at the shoulders, and the ankles and the wrists are like the McFarlane type of articulation, where it rotates all the way around, where the wrist meets the ankle, and where the ankle meets the shin, and where the wrist meets the fist, and where the wrist meets the forearm. Great articulation and extra articulation at the neck. You can get this guy in pretty much any kind of pose you want to. It's some excellent articulation. So yeah, definitely worth picking up. And I'm looking forward to more figures in this line. I'm looking forward to, as much as I'm liking these movie figures so far, and make no mistake, I am enjoying these movie figures. I'm hoping they'll do some like, it's called Masters of the Universe Chronicles. So chronicle the whole series. Let's see some movie, like maybe the 87 movie and the animated stuff. Let's see Filmation. Let's see Revelation. Let's see 2000X. In this line, let's see original designs like that Scareglow and King Grayskull. Those are original designs. They look great. So Al Davis says rocket booster effects for his backs. That would be a really cool thing to see, I think. Maybe for a future release. And then Trash Picture Show says, "Oh yeah, I'm not shitting on Masterverse. I understand. But I love the kind these movie ones have been touted to have super high articulation. Yes, if you like the articulation on Masterverse, and that is certainly something we agree on, then you're gonna love the Chronicles articulation. It's even better, and the joints are really smooth. I haven't really noticed that many problems with any stuck joints on these so far, and that's good. And they're pretty great figures. I'm really happy with them so far. And I'm looking forward to having Tila and Evelyn and Beastman and Trapjaw and like a lot of cool stuff on the way. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Next episode, I think I'm going to get back into opening up some of the 2000X figures that I have to open up because, I might as well open up Man-at-Arms from 2000X, right? Because I just opened up this Man-at-Arms. I might as well open up another one. So yeah, we'll do that. Next episode, I'm going to open up the 2000X version of Man-at-Arms. And I'm not going to bother to compare to this figure because, like I said, I kind of feel like this one is more based on the Filmation version than the 2000X version. But we'll go ahead and open that one up, and it should be fun. And that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below because you don't want to miss the next episode. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Man-at-Arms. And if you stayed this long in the episode, let me know what you think of the casting of Idris Elba. Like I said, I know some people were complaining about the race swap, but to me it doesn't really matter because he's a great actor. And I think he's going to be able to pull off that kind of warm paternal quality that I feel like is important for Man-at-Arms as a character. He's going to be a good like mentor type figure, and I think that's going to work out pretty well. Trash Picture Show says, wish we'd get a Masterverse version of Thundercats. That would be sweet. Awesome stream, dude. Maybe they can hold on to some of these other licenses and get those into the Chronicles line as well. We can maybe see like some Chronicles versions of Thundercats or Sunman or something like that. That would be really cool. And I'm hoping that like I said, that the DC figures, when they get to their adult collector DC figures, that they're of this level of quality. And maybe we could get some 2-packs like with the classics back in the aughts. Maybe we could get some 2-packs with like Superman versus He-Man and Batman versus Man-at-Arms, that kind of thing. That would be really cool. Abiga Kami says, the dad you wished you had. Yeah, see, exactly. Yeah, Man-at-Arms is the dad that you wished you had, and King Randor was the dad that you actually had. At least that's kind of how it was with me. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure that you like and subscribe and all that fun YouTube stuff down below. I'm going to go ahead and call this a day. I'm about to have to start getting ready for work anyway. So, that is what it is. Next episode, I'm not sure if it's going to be tomorrow or Wednesday, but next episode will be the Cartoon Collection 2000X version of Man-at-Arms, because we might as well continue the theme. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.